Hi, today we are going to cover 6.5 in our video, which is the remainder and factor theorems. Before we jump into that, we are going to do some review on long division that you learned a long time ago. So if we want to take 7,443 and divide it by 3, we see how many times does 3 go into 7? Oh, that can go at most 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. We subtract that, so 7 minus 6 leaves us with 1. We bring down the 4. How many times can 3 go into 14? That's only 4 times. 4 times 3 gives us 12. Again, we subtract 14 minus 12, which leaves us with 2. Bring down the 4. How many times does 3 go into 24? That's exactly 8 times. No remainder. We bring down the 3. 3 can go into 3 one time. So 7,443 divided by 3 is 2,481. Let's try that again. How many times can 9 go into 5? None. So we see how many times can 9 go into 57. That can go at most 6 times. 6 times 9 is 54. 57 minus 54 leaves us with 3. Bring down the 4. How many times can 9 go into 34? That can go in at most 3 times. 3 times 9 is 27. We bring down a 7. 34 minus 27 is 7. Bring down your 4. How many times can 9 go into 74? That's 8 times. 8 times 9 is 72. We're left with 2. Once we do that, we see, okay, 9. How many times can 9 go into 2? There's nothing left for me to bring down. So what I can do is add a decimal point, add a 0, make sure you add a decimal point up front too. How many times can 9 go into 20? That's 2. That gives us 18. 20 minus 18 leaves us with 2. We can bring down another 0, but we can quickly see that that's going to be repeating. So our answer for this one isn't as nice as our first one. We can write this in 2 different ways. One, our answer is 638 remainder 2, because we had 2 left over originally. Or we've got 638. With our 2 left over, we were dividing by 9. So that is going to be 638 and 2/9. The remainder was 2, and we get the 9 from what we were dividing by. And if you go in your calculator and you do 2 divided by 9, you will see that that is 0.2 repeating. Okay, so we're going to take all that we know about long division and we are going to apply it to polynomials. So we're going to start off with this x to the third minus 4x squared minus 19x minus 14 and divide it by x minus 7. When we write this, x minus 7 is what we are dividing by, so that's what's going to go on the outside. X cubed minus 4x squared minus 19x minus 14 is what's going to be left going over on the inside. Now when we do long division with polynomials, we're going to look at the x and the x to the third. What do I have to multiply by to take x and make it x to the third? That is going to be x squared. So we've got x squared, and then we multiply it by both pieces. So x squared times x is going to give us x to the third. X squared times a negative 7 is going to give us a negative 7x squared. So we subtract, remember, so 1 minus 1, that's going to cancel. A negative 4 minus a negative 7. Don't forget that we are distributing that negative, and this is where it gets a little bit difficult because it's easier when you just have numbers. So that's going to become a positive 7, so 7 minus 4 is going to leave us with 3x squared. Bring down the negative 19x. Again, we're going to look how many times, what do I have to multiply by x to get 3x squared? And that is a positive 3x. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times a negative 7 is a negative 21x. And again, we are going to distribute a negative to that second piece because we're subtracting that quantity. So 3 minus 3, those cancel. Negative 19, negative negative means that this is a positive 21, which is going to leave us with a positive 2x. Bring down the next piece of a negative 14. And then again, what do we have to multiply x by to get 2x? Well, we have to multiply by 2. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times a negative 7 is a negative 14. We distribute, or subtracting that. So 2 minus 2 is nothing. Negative 14 minus negative 14, that makes that a positive, which is 0, which means nothing is left over, which means we have no remainder. Therefore, our answer is just x squared plus 3x plus 2. So when we divide those two polynomials, that's what I'm left with. I'm going to do that one more time. Again, we're dividing by the x squared minus 2x plus 2, so that's what's going to go on the outside. On the inside, we've got 2x to the fourth, 3x cubed, 5x, and a negative 1. You want to be very, very careful here. We are missing an x squared term. So when we write this inside, we've got 2x to the fourth, 3x cubed. We're going to write in a 0x squared. You want to make sure that every variable has a placeholder. So if we don't have that term, we just fill it in with a 0x squared, because 0 times anything is going to cancel out. So we always look at the first term. So in the last one, we looked at the x and the x minus 7. Here we're going to look at the x squared. So what do I have to multiply x squared by to get 2x to the fourth? Well, I would have to multiply by 2x squared. I generally line it up with the same piece. So like in the last one, I lined x squared above x squared above x squared. To me, it keeps it more organized, but you don't have to do that, just as long as you don't make a mistake along the way. So we've got 2x squared times x squared. That's going to give us 2x to the fourth. 2x squared times a negative 2x is a negative 4x to the third. 2x times 2 is a positive 4x squared. And just like before, we are subtracting that quantity. So 2 minus 2 gives us 0. 3 plus 4 is going to give us 7x cubed. 0 minus 4 is going to give us a negative 4x squared. And then we bring down that 5x. So we look at the x squared and the 7x cubed. What do we have to multiply x squared by to get 7x cubed? And that is 7x. So 7x times x squared is 7x cubed. 7x times a negative 2x is a negative 14x squared. And 7x times 2 is a positive 14x. Alright, so we go ahead and we subtract what we just found. So 7 minus 7, those cancel. A negative 4 and a positive 14 is going to give us a positive 10x squared. 5 minus 14 is going to give us a negative 9x, and we bring that down that negative 1. So we've got x squared. What do we have to multiply x squared by to get 10x squared? That is 10. So that gives us 10x squared. 10 times negative 2x is a negative 20x. 10 times 2 is a positive 20. And again, we are going to subtract that quantity. So we've got 10 minus 10 canceled. Negative 9 and a positive 20 is an 11x. A negative 1 and a negative 20 is a negative 21. Now this is your remainder. We don't have anything left to bring down. We already brought down the negative 1. There's nothing left, which means that's going to be the remainder. And how we write the remainder. So we write the answer that we got, 2x squared plus 7x plus 10, and then we are going to add 11x minus 21 over whatever we were dividing by. So x squared minus 2x plus 2 in this case. Again, you take the remainder that you found and you write it as a fraction over whatever you were dividing by. The same way we did with our original long division in the beginning. We had 238, 2 divided by 9, because 2 was our remainder and we were dividing by 9. So let's look at that one more time. This was what was left over once we could not pull anything else down. So we find the answer, the 2x squared plus 7x plus 10, and then we add the remainder over whatever we were dividing by. Alright, go ahead and flip over to the next page. We have a second kind of division on the back side, and this is synthetic division. Once you learn synthetic division, you're going to only want to use synthetic division. However, you're going to have to know how to use both of them. So once you learn synthetic, don't go ahead and forget about long division. Okay, so we have the same thing, the same setup. We have a polynomial divided by another polynomial. We kind of have to think back and use our brains here. If we are dividing by x minus 1, that means that x minus 1 is a factor. If that's a factor that comes from x minus 1 equals 0, if I move the 1 over, that means x minus 1 is a solution. So if I am dividing by x minus 1, when I do synthetic division, I'm going to use the solution form. When I do long division, I use the factor. When I do synthetic division, I use the solution. And the solution is going to go on the outside of our little setup we're going to have here. We double check our exponents, 3, 2, 1, 0, so we don't have to add any zeros in. It's super important that you remember to check for missing pieces because it will make a huge difference here. Now, synthetic division, the way we do this, we bring down the first term, in this case, which is a 1. We are going to multiply 1 times 1, which is just 1, and that's going to go there. Then you just combine these together. In long division, you subtract. In synthetic division, you just combine. So a negative 1 and a positive 1 is 0. And then you do the same thing again. 1 times 0 is 0, so that's going to go there. A negative 2 plus 0 is a negative 2. 1 times a negative 2 is a negative 2. 8 minus 2 is 6. Now we started with an x cubed. I factored out an x, which means if I started with x cubed, this is now representing 1x squared. This is representing 0x, a negative 2, with a remainder of 6. So since we factored out 1x, we went from a cubed to a squared. So my answer would be x squared minus 2. Our remainder of 6, we're going to do it the same way we did long division. It's going to be 6 over whatever we were dividing by. And this is when we have to go back to the original equation. We were dividing by x minus 1. Alright, next one, we've got x plus 2. So remember, x plus 2 is the factor. And that comes from x plus 2 equals 0, which means x is equal to a negative 2 is the solution. In synthetic division, we use the solution. So we have a negative 2 on the outside. We double check our exponents, 3, 2, 1, 0. So we've got 1, negative 1, negative 2, 8. Bring down the first piece, which is 1. Multiply a negative 2 times 1 gives us a negative 2. We combine these two numbers, so a negative 1 and a negative 2 gives us a negative 3. A negative 2 times a negative 3 is a positive 6. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. Negative 2 times 4 is a negative 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. Now when we have a 0 left over in the end, that means no remainder. So it divides perfectly. So again, we started with an x cubed. We factored out 1x, which means this is a 1x squared, a minus 3x, a plus 4 with no remainder, and no, you do not have to write that 1. So if you end up with a 0 in synthetic division, there is no remainder at all. Alright, we have one last problem. So I want you to try this one on your own. So press play now when you are done, or press pause, and when you're done, press play and check your work. Alright, let's see how you did. Hopefully in the first step you double checked like I reminded you to do, and you realize that you are missing the x squared term. It went from 3 to 1 to 0. So when we go ahead and put our numbers in, we have to have a 1 coefficient for the 3. There is no x squared, so we have to fill in that 0 the same way we did with long division. We've got our 1 term is a 7, our first variable of x is 7, and then our negative 5. We have our setup, synthetic division. We bring down the first term. which is a 1. 2 times 1 gives us 2. Long division, we subtract. In synthetic division, we just combine the numbers together. So 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 7 plus 4 is 11. 2 times 11 is 22. A negative 5 plus 22 is a positive 17. So again, if we started with an x cubed, we factored out one of those x's, so that's 1x squared, and then you just go in descending order. 2x, 11, and when you have a number left over, that is the remainder. And don't forget, the remainder goes over whatever you were dividing by, which was the x minus 2. Alright, hopefully that was not too hard today. I will see you guys tomorrow.